Hi everybody. Just to introduce myself, my name is David Miller, and I am part of our UN House Association Scotland's Beyond COP team. In my day job, I work for Save the Children, and along with my colleagues here, we have organised this event for you where we're going to be talking about technology and AI and navigating misinformation beyond COP30. So before we begin, just a couple of ground rules and guidelines as well. If feel free to have your cameras on, but if you're able to keep your microphones off whilst we do the presentations, that would be really good. So we're going to begin. We're joined by three wonderful speakers today, and we're going to hear from each one of them with a short Q&A, and then the second part of the meeting will be opened up to everybody for that as well. So I'm just going to spotlight my uh, co co-speakers so we can see them all, and then yeah, we'll go through. If you have any questions, we'd love you to post them in the chat as well as we progress through the meeting, and my colleague Hannah will be keeping an eye on that as well. So yeah, first off, I'll introduce who we have here. So I'm joined by Elizabeth, Louise, and Roberta. So Roberta is a policy fellow at the Grantham Research Institute at the London School of Economics. Her current research focuses on green industrial policy, trade, clean technology supply chains, and the intersection of AI and climate change, making her an excellent voice on today's topic. In this role, she's produced reports and research outputs for a number of institutions, including the G7, World Economic Forum, and the UK Climate Change Committee. She's also served as a member of the expert working group on net zero finance and disclosure of climate-related risks under the UNFCCC Climate Champions Team's Race to Zero campaign. Roberta is a regular speaker at international forums, and she's previously worked at Imperial College in London on transition scenarios in emerging and developing economies, and her work has been featured in high-profile media outlets, including the Financial Times and Guardian. So thank you very much, Roberta. So Luis is a lecturer in media, culture and society at the University of Glasgow here in Scotland. At Glasgow University, he co-leads the interdisciplinary research network on information integrity. His research examines the role of misinformation in climate policy backlash, and he collaborates with third sector organizations to develop counter misinformation strategies that place listening and empathy at the center. This really specific experience is so relevant to our topic today, and we're really grateful to have him with us. So thank you. And then last but not least is Elizabeth Nyironge, who is my former colleague from our time both at Christian Aid, where she has been a pioneer and thinker in the IT industry with an African focus. Now she's a regional IT service manager for Africa at the Gates Foundation based in Nairobi, Kenya, and has over 15 years of experience in private public development and the humanitarian sector. Elizabeth's passionate about empowering people and businesses through digital innovation, diversity, and inclusion. Through her leadership, she's founded the Kagato Tech Hubs, a digital inclusion initiative aiming to provide women and girls with access to technology. Elizabeth's experience working across Africa in the development sector, as well as her experience in connecting technology to development, means we're very fortunate to have her time with us here today. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining. Really looking forward to having a conversation with you. So to start with, we are going to hear from Roberta. So Roberta, I'd like to hand over to you for 5-10 minutes to share a bit about your experience and what you want to talk about on this topic, and then you and I will just have a couple of questions and then we'll move on. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, great. Thanks, David, and thanks for inviting me. Thanks for the great introduction as well. As you mentioned, my recent work has been focusing on a wide range of topics, including also the intersection between AI and climate change. almost a year ago, we published a paper with my colleagues at Grantham. What we tried to do in that paper was a lot of the debate, especially in the media out there, covers the negative impacts of AI technologies in terms of impacts on emissions, on energy demand, and other risks associated to the use of AI. And what we wanted to uncover was the other side of the story. So, are there any positive impacts in terms of using machine learning and AI to accelerate or facilitate climate action? So, this was the focus of that study at the time. And what we found is that AI technologies have a real potential to accelerate climate action and make a positive impact on the environment. So in the study specifically, we tried to identify some of the key impact areas that we believe can have a very powerful, let's say, impact on supporting climate transition, encompassing mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. And we identified specifically 5 key impact areas through which AI can be particularly effective in supporting climate action. And starting from the first one, we already been seeing how machine learning has been powerfully using in transforming complex systems. For example, energy grids, cities, or transport system. Think about like managing demand and supply in power grids. Another area in which AI can support the climate transition effectively is the acceleration of technology discovery and resource efficiency. AI technologies have already been used to accelerate discovery of new materials for clean technologies, to discover also potential new battery compositions, improve packaging efficiency, and also recycling. Another area where AI is being used effectively is what we call nudging and behavioral change. And this can be applied specifically, as an example, to heating and cooling systems in buildings, reducing, therefore, energy consumption for households and services as well. AI is also particularly effective in processing vast data sets and in running complex simulations in real time. And this makes it a very helpful, actually, tools in improving the accuracy of, as an example, modeling climate systems or modeling policy interventions related to climate change or the environment. And finally, the last key area that we identify relates to resilience and adaptation of climate change. And in these areas specifically, we already been seeing a lot of uses of AI technologies applied to early warning systems for extreme events. So clearly there are a lot of applications that are already being used in the context of climate change. We also try to identify, to provide some quantitative analysis, so to put some numbers on this. And what we did in the study was to try to assess the emission reduction potential of AI applications across 3 specific economic sectors. So we picked the energy sector, food, and transport, which collectively represent about roughly half of the global emissions. And so what we found is that the potential emission reduction enabled by AI technologies applied only in those 3 sectors more than offset the greenhouse gases emissions coming from all AI-related activities in data centers. So these results clearly makes a strong case for a targeted use of AI for climate. And therefore, the paper had a lot of, let's say, attention in the media and so on. But obviously, we also have to consider that beyond the positives, there are multiple risks that are associated to the use of AI for climate. And those risks could potentially hinder the positive effects of AI in reducing emissions. So to provide you just a quick overview of the risks that we still need to keep in mind. So in the study, we focused specifically on the net effect of AI technologies on greenhouse gases emissions, but there are broader environmental impacts associated to the use of AI. For example, impacts on water demand, impacts on energy use, land use, and also AI infrastructure actually requires the mining of specific critical minerals. And this activity can actually result in different environmental and social impacts in the areas where the mining is actually happening. Energy demand is one of the main concerns. Data centers' energy consumption at the moment is still small, and according to recent estimates by the International Energy Agency, in 2024, data centers accounted for around 1.5% of the global electricity consumption. But these numbers are set to rise quite sharply. And according to the same source, they are set to more than double by 2030. So electricity grids are already under a lot of strain in many places. And the increase in energy demand due to data centers' energy consumption can put even more pressure on electricity grids. And so the main risk is that in many places, the expansion of data centers will happen faster than what the electricity grid can currently handle. So those are very important issues that we need to consider. In terms of the emissions, the extent to which data center growth of energy demand actually translates into increasing greenhouse gases emissions ultimately depends on which energy sources are powering the data centers. Currently, according to, again, the International Energy Agency, data centers are on track to account for about 1% of total energy sector emissions by 2030. But again, the energy demand is set to increase, and how this translates into emission, it really depends again on the electricity mix. Currently, many data centers are trying to source energy through renewables. Some of them are building small nuclear power reactors in near the facilities. But the reality is that in the near term, a lot of the demand will be met by fossil fuels. So there are clearly a lot of challenges, and AI itself can provide some of the solution to those challenges, but ultimately the adoption that we require and that we talk about in our paper for climate solutions is not guaranteed and could be negated in the near term by renewable capacity constraints and also by rebound effects. So these are very important issues that we should take into account.
Thank you, Roberta. Yeah, some really interesting points there, and thank you for sharing as well about the research that you've been doing as well. So I've just got a couple of questions I think that maybe would be interesting to get your view on as well. So where do you see the biggest trade-off using AI as a climate solution versus AI as a climate challenge as well, like the energy use that it uses to create AI, for example?
Well, as we show in the paper, there are many areas in which AI is already making a big difference. And in general, I would say that In the energy sector, specifically, we've been seeing already a lot of applications of AI in terms of electricity grid optimization. So that is a very great example of how machine learning is providing a lot of help in terms of integrating more renewables into the system. Specifically in the energies, in the power sector, one of the biggest challenges in integrating more renewables into the grid, therefore in decarbonizing the electricity system, is the fact that the renewables energy sources are intermittent. So AI can improve actually electricity demand forecasting and manage supply from renewable sources like solar and wind, and in these ways enabling real-time energy balancing and allowing therefore for more renewables to be integrated in the power grid without compromising the reliability of power supply. And this is already happening across different electricity utilities in the US, Europe, and China, spanning both in large grid operators, also smaller operators, and so on. Another gray area is adaptation and resilience, as I said, early warning system for extreme weather events, such as floods, wildfires, and so on, are already being improved by the use of AI technologies. And this is enabling governments and communities to take more proactive measures for mitigating the damages and saving lives as well. In terms of where AI is causing the problem, I mean, as I said, there are a lot of environmental impacts that we need to take into account. And one of the biggest worries at the moment is the increase in energy demand. Even though right now the energy demand is small, is set to rise very, very sharply. To give an example, in Ireland, which is a big tech hub at the moment, at least in Europe, data centers already consume 1/5 of the country's electricity. So, and those estimates are projected to reach 1/3 within the next few years. So this can create a lot of strain in the country's energy supply, can result also in disruptions of energy supply, in increase in energy costs for consumers. So those are aspects that clearly we need to take into account. There are also rebound effects that might happen in the energy system as well, in terms of, first of all, AI-powered, as an example, AI-led energy savings can result in actually consumers increasing energy consumption just because they're saving money already. But also another interesting effect is the use of AI in fossil fuel industry. The fossil fuel industry indeed has been an early adopter of AI technologies. They've been using it for optimizing exploration, production, discovery of new reserves. So in this context, AI is actually contributing, unfortunately, directly to increase greenhouse gases emissions. So there are clearly, in the energy sector specifically, I think, is where most of the gains in terms of potential for reducing emission, but also most of the risks are actually happening at the moment.
Yeah, that's great, and lots of really interesting things that you shared there around sort of the positive impact that AI can have, and yeah, real tangible differences as well with things like the early warning systems and improved awareness of climate issues that are coming as well. So yeah, really good points, and thank you for sharing. I think we'll move on now, and we'll hear from Luis. So Luis, I'll bring you onto the spotlight, and then over to you. It'd be great to hear from you as well.
Thank you, David, for the presentation. Thank you to UNA Scotland for the invitation. In this presentation today, I will focus on this puzzle. why, given what we know about climate change, has our response been so insufficient? There is widespread agreement in the scientific community, in international organizations, among the public as well, that climate change is happening, that climate change poses an existential threat, and that replacing fossil fuels is necessary and pretty much sufficient to solve the climate crisis. So why is it that, given what we know, our response has been so insufficient? And of course, there are many factors here, but I'm going to focus on one factor that needs to be taken into account, which is what researchers call climate obstruction, which are the intentional actions and efforts to slow or block actions on climate change that are commensurate with the scientific consensus. So to understand the insufficient response, insufficient action on climate change, we need to focus on the efforts, the intentional actions and efforts by the fossil fuel industry, by agricultural industry as well, car manufacturers, dairy industry, to slow or block action, the actions that are needed to solve the climate emergency. And these strategies that they have used, or these actions that they have used, have involved mainly three strategies. And the three strategies involve some degree of misinformation. And the first one, I'm sure everyone will be familiar with, climate denial. Denying outright that climate change is happening, that's known as trend denial, or accepting that climate change is happening, but denying that human beings or CO2 emissions have anything to do with it, that's known as attribution denial, or impact denial, accepting that climate change is happening, but claiming that the impacts will not be as severe as climate scientists tell us that they will. Another strategy is known as delay discourses. They accept the science, but they argue against solutions, and they serve to justify inaction. For example, by exaggerating the costs of taking action, claiming that transitioning to renewables will tank the economy, and downplaying the costs of not doing anything. And the third strategy is known as promoting false solutions. And this strategy is becoming increasingly prevalent as denying climate change is becoming less credible, less tenable, less effective as a strategy. Oil and gas companies are investing heavily in technologies like carbon capture, hydrogen, biofuels, which sound promising, but experts tell us that they are inadequate, that they are often not economically viable, and that they will do very little to reduce emissions, which is what is needed to address the climate emergency. And the strategy promoting false solutions allows oil and gas companies to keep extracting, to keep burning fossil fuels now with AI optimization, as Roberta was explaining, while at the same time presenting themselves as part of the solution and claiming to be solving the problem. To understand the effects of misinformation, we need to resist crude, simplistic, causal assumptions about media messages. Misinformation rarely changes attitudes and behaviors directly. Psychological research, sociological research, research in media studies tells us that human beings are not blank slates absorbing whatever information we are exposed to. Audiences tend to be active in how we process information. We tend to filter information through the lens of our identity. Our sense of who we are, our values, our beliefs influence how we interpret, how we make sense of information. And we tend to accept information that is consistent with what we believe. We tend to accept information that comes from trusted sources, and we tend to reject information that challenges our beliefs or our values. Now, that misinformation doesn't change attitudes or behaviors directly doesn't mean that it is harmless. There are other harms that come from misinformation. I'm just going to highlight one, which is that it can distort our understanding of climate policies. If our favored politician spreads misinformation about climate change, claims that, or about climate policies, claiming that climate policies are more costly than they really are, that might influence us, and that might undermine support for climate policies. Misinformation prevents or can undermine our ability to form accurate opinions about climate policies, and we may end up opposing policies that might benefit us and that we might support if we had accurate information or access to accurate information. Is AI a game changer. Just to add to Roberta's excellent presentation, I'm sure you will have seen alarmist headlines suggesting that we are headed towards an information apocalypse, that we're headed towards epistemic breakdown, situation where nobody will be able to tell what is real anymore. I want to offer a more optimistic scenario, although of course the jury is still out. But I want to bring our attention to the fact that AI is not the first technology that has made it possible to produce high quality, convincing fake content. Photoshop has been around for quite some time, at least since the 90s. And trust in information has not completely collapsed. Societies have developed, have built institutions, forensic analysis, for example, courts, fact-checking, that have maintained to a large degree trust in our information ecosystems. These are institutions that have developed verification mechanisms that have protected the integrity of the information environment. And I would argue there's no reason to expect that societies will not keep developing or adapting those institutions to meet the challenge. And Roberto already talked us through some of those innovations, the positive ways in which AI can be used. Research also shows that audiences are developing new ways of judging what to believe. We, as a public, are increasingly moving away from realism cues, how realistic an image looks, and moving towards relational judgments of credibility. Who shared an image online, or what news outlet published it? These are the tools that we're using, or the judgments that we're making to judge whether an image is credible or believable or not. This is not a picture of epistemic collapse. This is a picture of epistemic adaptation. So to conclude, I have argued that insufficient action on climate change can at least be partly attributed to the efforts by the oil and gas industry and other industries to block or delay action on climate change, the action that is needed, and that the science tells us that is needed to avoid climate catastrophe. Misinformation may not change minds directly. That doesn't make it harmless. It has other harms, such as undermining our ability to form accurate, meaningful opinions, and that may in turn undermine support for climate action. AI certainly poses unprecedented risks. It makes it easier, cheaper than ever to mass produce high quality misinformation, but societies have historically adapted to meet the challenges posed by new information technologies, and evidence suggests that adaptation is already underway. Thank you, and I look forward to questions and the discussion.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for sharing some really interesting points. I think that a lot of what you're saying around misinformation is I guess also quite encouraging in some ways, like about how that misinformation has always been there, and it's really interesting to think about how people's like sort of understanding of authenticity of information adjusts to factor that in. So yeah, thank you for sharing that as well. So I just put one or two questions to you as well. One of them, how do you think societies can rebuild trust in information in a world where AI can generate highly convincing false content?
That's a very good question. Not an easy answer. I would say that it's very important that we resist or we avoid making those alarmist claims, for example, about the impact of AI. If we, as researchers, as communicators, feed into this notion that nothing can be trusted, if we feed into this notion that we're headed towards an information apocalypse, where all the information that we are consuming is potentially false, then we are making it easier for bad actors, for liars, to get away with lying. This is what's known as the liar's dividend. If nothing can be trusted, then a politician who has been, let's say, caught on tape engaging in some form of corruption, it makes it easier for them to say, well, the evidence is actually fake. The evidence is fabricated. I never said that. So we have to resist those alarmist claims, because what we're doing is making it easier for liars to just get away with lying. And it's important that we make sure that, for example, through regulation, I think that that's also essential to maintain trust in our information ecosystems. I think the digital platforms have been let off the hook for too long, and I think that COP30 was a great contribution there in terms of initiatives to protect the information, the integrity of our information ecosystems. There has been a lot of emphasis on media literacy, and that is certainly important, educating audiences to be critical of the content that they consume and to verify content. But audiences are already quite critical. And I've been doing some focus groups in Scotland, and young people, but older generations as well, are quite critical. In fact, they might be even too critical of the information that they consume online. So it's important that we not only put the onus on audiences in terms of protecting themselves from misinformation, but that we also put the onus on platforms to stop amplifying misinformation, for example, or to at least, if not remove it from the platforms, which might raise free speech issues, but at least not to amplify the way in which they are doing. So to act more responsibly, basically. But I'm not sure that we can rely on their goodwill to act responsibly. So regulation might be needed there to protect the trust and integrity of our information ecosystems.
Do you think that regulation can realistically keep up with AI-generated misinformation?
I think that Roberta's presentation was very interesting here in terms of how researchers, for example, or fact checkers can benefit from AI to spot misinformation, to classify misinformation. Roberta mentioned nudges. I believe she mentioned it in a different way, but nudges or labels that content is AI generated can, for example, help users or make users more cautious when they are evaluating misinformation or before sharing content. So it's part of the solution, no doubt about it. So regulation is part of the solution. Of course, it's not a silver bullet. There's no magical solution, unfortunately, but it's definitely part of the picture. I think that other solutions have to go beyond information itself. We need to also address the conditions, socioeconomic conditions that create receptivity to certain narratives or that create vulnerability to certain narratives. To address the problem and the impact, the effects of misinformation, we certainly need to look at let's say, the supply of misinformation, the narratives, the misinformation itself. We need to look at the distribution, which is the role of platforms. We also need to look at the demand. We need to look at the conditions that are generating demand. If you feel excluded from politics, if you feel excluded from the green transition, you might be looking for narratives that resonate with your own experience and that confirm your suspicion that politicians are all corrupt and part of a conspiracy. So we need also to address those conditions if we want to address the problem.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we could have a whole hour on this, no problem, and this is such an interesting topic. And yeah, I mean, obviously we're talking at this within sort of a climate lens, but you could change the subject to be about almost anything and the challenge that we're facing on different topics as well. But yeah, thank you very much. So we'll move on to Elizabeth now and hear from her, and then we'll have a bit of time to answer some of the questions that are being put in the chat as well. So yeah, thank you, Louise. So Elizabeth, hello.
Hello.
Lovely to be working with you again for this brief moment.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and it's good to be seeing and listening to the conversation and speaking after Luis, talking about misinformation, but I think also on Roberto talking about what the impacts of AI and environmental impact that we have, what AI has. Allow me to give you my perspective from Africa. My topic today, I want to cover borderless AI. And before I move on, how many of you have experienced a moment today where internet was slow or you could not get a signal, perhaps even when preparing for this session?
That's why I came to the office. Yeah.
How did that moment feel?
Yeah, very challenging.
Yes, and that's the reality for the many of the African people that have to go through that. And almost every AI system being built today, every chatbot, every health tool that I have been a part of, every climate app, the one that I have been a part of, but even those that I have assumed that we have a fast reliable internet connection. And when I pose that question, is it available offline? I really don't get the question, or rather the answer that I may want, because I need to support the very many Africans who would be relying on that particular AI that I believe is a game changer. Allow me to talk today about a different kind of AI that does not need the internet. AI that lives on our mobile phone. AI that keeps working when governments turn the internet off. We've seen this happen in the various countries. And initially we thought perhaps it was only happening in the developing countries, and we could go ahead and start talking. Maybe the governments are getting corrupt. That's why they are shutting down, but it's no longer that anymore. It is called borderless AI. And Africa is already showing the world how this works. So here is the problem, connectivity being part of the gap, but we already have so many millions of Africans who already have a phone. They don't require data to keep on accessing some of the services on a very single day. The government shutdowns have also meant that we are unable to access some of these services as we move on during the government shutdown that have happened during election times. The fragility of the infrastructure. Last year when we had not last year, but I think 2 years ago, when we had 90% of the intercontinental internet that runs through the fiber cables was cut off. And what did that mean? 20 countries in Africa went offline. When I talk about the borderless AI, this is AI that does not depend on the internet. I'm not only talking about protecting people from their own government. I'm talking about protecting African economies, Africa services, and African communities from the fundamental fragility of the infrastructure we have built on a digital future. An AI system that goes offline when a ship drags an anchor, or somewhere within the war, as we've seen in the Suez Canal, somebody just decides because their countries are fighting, let's plug or let's cut the fiber cable. Is not ready for Africa. And frankly, it is not ready for the world. And I think we've seen that in the last coming days. And here is what strikes me most, that the tools that have survived are not really the ones that were designed in the biggest data center that is taking a lot of our environmental concerns and have brought us here to discuss that question beyond COP30 and what is AI affecting our environment, energy consumption. It's taken very minimal use of the item. Some of these are SMS based, and some of those I would be mentioning are an SMS based and an IVR tool that has been used in by a company called Viamo in Africa, and this one is able to have voice, to have language translation in it, but also have SMS. You do not require to have gone to school for you to use that, and use the tools and the services and the applications that are running all on that. The tools that do not depend on a central servers that can be switched off at the quick and a sneak of a second. What does this mean when communities are cut off? And what does this mean for the African continent? The phone is a great equalizer. AIs must meet people where they are offline. Most of them are on 2G, but we're building 5G and 6G, but we still have uncut people who are not able to use those services that are being built on even the 3G of the day. Local language on a feature phone. If the answer is no, I don't think this is built for Africa, but I think also it's not built for the world. The phone is a great equalizer. It's in the hands of a farmer in rural Kenya, the market trader in Lagos, the community health worker in Eastern DRC. The phone is not the future, it is the present. And we must keep building the AI for the future. And yet we keep building AI for the future and ignoring the present. My example on Viamo is a tool that has been delivering this across the continent using voice. I hope that I can see my grandmother back in the village just speaking. She didn't have to go to school to use the VMO tool. She just need to use her voice and ask the question on her avocado farms in her local language and able to get the answers that she requires to improve her farm. So what borderless AI must do for Africa? Number one is leveling on education. We have a very straight, or rather hierarchical way of somebody needing to know the AI of the day, like I am. I went to primary school, I went to high school, I have gone to university, I have done my master's. AI is here, and I still have to learn what is this data science, what is this machine learning. If only an offline AI tutor can meet this local farmer, this grandmother, wherever they are, and knowledge can be transferred. In the past, we used to have YouTube as the only tutor. It was the only classroom. Somebody will tell you, go to the to the YouTube classroom. Right now, if we are able to make AI to be that tool, then we're able to transform how education is received, and it becomes a level playing field that anyone can run. If I want to learn about how AI is working, for instance, now in my own local language, I should be able to use the VMO tool or a tool that can be able to help me understand that conversation in my local without having gone to school, having gone and learned English. I think the other part is on the climate action, local data for local solutions. In the past, the people who worked, our communities, our grandmothers, they really relied on certain signs that would help them predict the weather. So right now, I am a farmer myself, and one of the things that I have suffered so much is getting unreliable information from the weatherman of the day. Why? Because they have distributed climate weather stations where they are, very far away from where the people are. It will take us a lot of time and effort and resources to ensure that all that data is in one place. But how about using an AI tool that anyone can be able to use to get that information? Or if I ask, if I want to know, will it rain tomorrow? And it can ask me, where are you? Can I know where are you? And it's able to search through the big database in terms of where I am and can give me the right information. Let's not forget on data sovereignty. Africa generations of indigenous climate knowledge must be harnessed, protected, and amplified, and not extradited for systems built and monetized. I guess the question is, to do this, we must ask, whose knowledge goes in and whose questions does it answer? We need an AI that has three things: with local knowledge, harness it, but genuinely incorporating it into how systems reason, protecting it by ensuring communities retain ownership and control, and amplify it by making it accessible to the community itself, not just to the researchers and corporation. No offense, Luis. When we ask what question does the AI answer, we should be asking whether those questions were set by the community or for the community. Allow me to stop it there and hand it back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elizabeth. Some really interesting points there. I think, yeah, it's so important to highlight how actually the role of AI can be such a leveler. As long as somebody can speak a language, then they're able to have in their pocket a private tutor or a coach on a specialist subject, whatever it might be, that they're able to get that advice and support as well. And that is only going to keep strengthening and becoming more accurate as well. So yeah, the role that AI can play for small scale farmers in Africa or people with reduced education around the world, I think is enormous opportunity, and hopefully will lead to greater economic growth for people regardless of the the upbringing and the lot in life that they've been given. Yeah, so thanks very much, Elizabeth, for your points as well. I think we've got some questions coming through, so I think we'll go on to those as well. And then, yeah, maybe together we can pick and choose who else would be most suited to respond to. But the first question that came through was from Caroline Birch, and I think this might be more for you, Roberta. I'm going to bring this on. Hopefully you can see it in the chat. But Caroline is talking about how tech at any level is no use without the right political will. And can you comment on the suggestion that we have astonishing digital tech already, and yeah, and how greater tech is not sustainable with policies, and that's a deadly combination. So, Roberta, would you like to share your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Thanks, David and Caroline, for the great question. I do agree, as in obviously in our study we highlight different types of gray AI solutions that are already very powerful in terms of helping us dealing with the climate change challenge, but technology alone is not sufficient, and especially I don't think market forces alone are sufficient to drive the scale of change that is required, first of all, for reaching climate targets, but also for actually steering AI solutions in the right direction. And I do agree that we need policy intervention, and government should be very vocal and active on different aspects. So first of all, we need to make sure that AI technologies are steered towards climate critical applications, like they need to be steered towards the public goods and not left to market incentives, because market incentives might not go in the right direction, in the direction of the benefits for society. Second, I think that governments should step up in terms of creating the enabling conditions for this to happen, create the right incentives for the right types of climate-related solutions to be scaled up and developed. But also there needs to be regulation, because as we mentioned in today's presentation, there are a lot of risks that come with the use of AI. And when we talk about climate change, a lot of risks connected to the environmental impacts, energy use impacts, and so on. And so public intervention is needed for regulating, first of all, emissions from data centers. So requiring data centers to use clean energy, and also to promote energy efficient AI model design. And also, again, ultimately, the impact on greenhouse gases emissions, and I'm talking about this because this is the main focus of my job. I work on climate change. It strongly depends on the power mix, how the power is generated. And so we need the clean power expansion to happen together with the AI deployment. So if renewables scale rapidly enough, then the energy demand coming from AI could be potentially absorbed without increasing greenhouse gases emissions. So it's really important that governments step up in terms of ensuring that AI for climate and clean power expansion are part of the same agenda. And also we need international cooperation on AI governance, on data sharing, on climate finance as well, and cooperation between governments, research institutions, research labs, and so on, who are developing these new models, these new application and technologies, and the private sector, tech industries as well.
Thanks, Roberta, for that and your response there. So yeah, we've got a few more questions in the chat, and I'm actually going to bring Julia Brown into this, who's going to ask these as well. But if anybody wants to speak their questions themselves, then feel free to raise your hand. It's just we'll speak them out on your behalf if need be. But Julia, there's a couple of questions in the chat. Do you want to take over?
So thank you all to all three of our speakers. Those are really amazing presentations. I'm going to pull a question that was asked in the chat from Makoto, who I think it was kind of directed at all three speakers. And it is, if we fast forward to COP35, what role do you think AI will have played in shaping climate outcomes? I don't know if any of you want to answer first, but.
Maybe I could go. I think if AI is able to put the right data and the right information in the hands of a farmer who can be able to use that information to improve their yields and to improve their livelihoods, whether that is also for business or for education, I think for me that in itself will have helped us leapfrog in terms of what AI can do for the climate change by COP35. So just ensuring that the AI is there, we're using the local knowledge, but also it is at the hands of the very community that are affected by the climate change.
Yeah, that's really great. And then Roberta or Luis, if you would like to add anything, please feel free.
I think I talked enough, I think, on this topic.
No, it's
I leave the others to say their opinion.
Well, in that case, we have just one last question, which would be to all of you. If there's one message you want everyone here to remember after today, what would it be?
I'm just going to jump in.
Yeah.
I would say that we need a nuanced approach to understanding the opportunities and the challenges presented by AI, the opportunities and the challenges that come with any technology, really. And I think that the space that we have created today has been perfect for that in terms of avoiding, as I said earlier, avoiding alarmist interpretations or alarmist claims that are very unhelpful in terms of understanding the potential, understanding the nature, understanding the threats, but also that can contribute, the alarmist claims themselves can have consequences, right, in terms of undermining trust. So I think that understanding that technologies are, let's say, not forces in themselves, that technologies don't determine what happens with them, that we as a society have control, have power to put pressure on politicians to regulate the technologies. Technologies are not forces that are dropped in a given society and things will happen automatically. They certainly have, not all technologies are the same. And for example, to fight a war with machetes or bayonets is not the same as fighting a war with nuclear bombs. So I'm not saying that technologies are neutral. They make certain actions possible. And AI makes, for example, as Roberta explained, makes the analysis of big data sets possible in ways that previous technologies didn't make possible. At the same time, part of the panic or the alarmist claims come from feeling that we are defenseless in the face of a new technology. And that, I believe, is harmful in the sense that it may stop us from putting the demands that we need to put on politicians to regulate these technologies for the benefit of society.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we've had a very pragmatic sort of analysis of AI and misinformation today surrounding sort of the climate movement. And then, so one more question we have from the chat from Robert is, what can grassroots community groups do about misinformation? And it is said that they are specifically interested in the relational cues that Luis mentioned. Is the shift to relational cues from what seems realistic a good thing and more information literate? looking for valid sources, or is it just a social/gut feeling?
Good question. So this is emerging research that's coming out in sociology and in media studies in terms of how audiences are evaluating content. And in a way, what it shows is that we are developing new ways of judging content. There's no doubt that we are already in a world where it's virtually impossible to the naked eye to tell real content from fake content. And technologies are only getting better, but it is already at this stage very, very difficult. Now, does that mean that we're going to lose trust in information, in everything? Not necessarily. It's been, let's say, a prompt for people to start developing new strategies for evaluating the accuracy or the veracity or the validity of or whether something is real or not. And instead of relying on how realistic it looks, that's not helpful anymore. Because it could look hyper realistic, but at the same time be fake. So we're developing new strategies, and trust is becoming very important here. Do we trust the outlet that published the image? Do we trust the person? Have people whom we trust flagged that image as potentially suspicious? That's also very important. We may look at the comments and what people are saying in relation to that image. But I think that the bigger picture here is the strategies, but also the institutions that societies have developed to meet the challenge posed by new technologies, which goes back to what I was saying earlier, that we're not passive. We have agency, and we can use our agency to make sure that technologies serve the public interest rather than those of the interests of the companies or the corporations that are putting them out there, oftentimes have the necessary safeguards.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Robert, I don't know if you have anything else to ask Luis on that. No.
Well, I suppose I'm sort of asking what's next, because one of the things that in my work we're trying to push as a climate network in Glasgow is information literacy. Most of our members are small community groups, they're community centres, churches and that. And so they're often the people that folk are listening to. But like, we've encountered people who've known people who fall down rabbit holes in exactly the way that your research has described. They're disaffected by something actually unfair, and then the misinformation that they find promises them a target, or it promises a simple solution. I'm particularly looking for like strategies for third sector groups to, like, I don't know, prevent that or notice it, or basically try to inoculate people against, or not even inoculate. Sorry, I'm taking too long to make this point if I'm making one. Just kind of be aware that that's going to be there when they go out looking.
Can I jump in quickly, or
Please,
yes?
I think
Yeah,
that
yeah.
might have taken us too long. Sorry.
Go for
Thank
it.
you, Robert. I mean, and thank you for the work that you're doing at the community level. I think that that is absolutely fundamental, and unfortunately, I would say that there's no silver bullet, and I think that your efforts in terms of teaching media literacy, or I would also say algorithmic literacy, AI literacy, right, in terms of how to navigate these very complex information environments in which we live. I think that that is essential. You said that people fall into rabbit holes. I would say sometimes people jump into rabbit holes, and they dig even deeper, right? Because as you were saying, they find the information that they want to, that they're looking for. So I think that it's very important also to address and I think the community works also do good work there in terms of providing the spaces and that can address the conditions that make people want to jump into those rabbit holes. And I think that's also absolutely essential. Just having a place to spend time and just having a community that can make people feel less isolated. I think that those spaces are absolutely fundamental, but also the kinds of skills to navigate this information environment as well, making them aware that there are bad actors out there whose purpose it is to mislead them, that they don't have their best interests at heart when they are spreading misinformation. And I think that that's also very important to giving them a sense that it's a hostile environment and that they will encounter that content that is precisely tailored to stoke those anxieties that are real. I think that meeting them where they are and understanding that the anxieties are real, not making light of them, of course, not demonizing them or not judging them for falling into those rabbit holes or for jumping into those rabbit holes. I think it's essential. Listening, trying to understand them, but of course, at the same time, warning them that bad actors are putting content out there sometimes just to make money, but sometimes also for ideological purposes to advance their own agendas. So I think that the work that you're doing is really, really essential and absolutely helpful.
Great. Thank you very much.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Robert, for your question as well. Okay, so we're at time. I just want to give Elizabeth, Roberta, if you want to jump in and say anything, then feel free, and then we'll bring it to a close.
Yeah, allow me to add on to that question that has been asked, that AI inventions or AI developments are more anchored on war or the military in that case. I would like to challenge all of us, if AI can be used to that level for military, for war, imagine if we funded AI invention for education, for health, for agriculture, for the environmental and climatic change that we are talking about today. I think the world would be a better place for all of us. I think that's what I would leave us with. We just have to be more intentional in terms of where we are putting the investment.
Definitely. Elizabeth, that's such a good point as well to make. Roberta?
Yeah, no, that is great. It's a great way to conclude, actually. And I wanted just to second what Elizabeth and Luis said in terms of the importance, first of all, of keeping a nuanced type of approach when talking about AI and climate, as in highlighting the opportunities and also considering the risks. And our role as a society shouldn't be to take an alarmistic type of attitude, but to actually try to use this great tool that can actually help us face a lot of challenges, climate change, but also other great challenges that humanity is facing, and trying to steer the investments, as Elizabeth said, the investments, the research, and the policy effort towards the great good, the good for society. So this should be the way to approach the narrative around AI and climate.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a really good point. But there's definitely a lot of fear justified, I think, with the information that we're seeing around AI, but let's not forget the huge opportunities and the opportunities for good that AI brings as well. All right, well, thank you very much to all of our speakers and to everybody who came and joined and asked some wonderful questions. Sorry we didn't make it to all of them, but I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure it would have been wonderful to have even longer to hear some of these topics as well. But you all have met each other now, and if you want to take those conversations up or connect on LinkedIn with each other and have that, then yeah, we're all for it as well. Hannah has just put in the chat a bit of a thank you as well. If you want to be linked up with what we're doing here with the UN Association in Scotland, then you can follow our socials as well, or email the list there as well. And Luis, we've had some requests for your slides as well from Caroline as well. So that'd be great if you're able to share them if possible. Yeah, thank you very much for coming, everybody, and yeah, lovely to meet you all. Take care.